So most of the thyroid hormone that is produced is T4, and that's pretty much primarily inactive. So we need T4 to then convert to the active form of thyroid hormone, which is T3, which is what we want. So we want to have good amounts of T4 so it can convert. We want it to convert, and then it can also bypass T3 and convert to reverse T3, which again is very inactive. So you're still going to have symptoms of low thyroid. So you could have normal TSH, you could have good levels of T4. And so that's a lot of times all the doctors will look at and they go, well, you're fine, your T4's fine, your TSH is both in range, no problem. But if they're not looking at your T3, which could be super low, or your reverse T3, which could be quite high, there's a lot of problems there, but that's missed very commonly.
Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your hosts, Steve and Nicole. And today, how are you? Good?
I'm good, thanks, Steve. I'm like, you were going to just go straight into it, and I'm like, good, thanks.
I'm good. We've been chatting all morning.
Well, you're nice and bouncy and all. That was a very exuberant introduction.
I've got a good metabolism. What can I say?
You do? I wonder why that is, Steve.
Why is it? What controls our metabolism, Nick?
Oh, well, let me think. Thyroid, Steve.
What are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about thyroid.
Oh,
how ironic.
That's funny. Ironic. That was a good joke because iron is involved in the thyroid and iodine is involved. See, when you said ironic, that was very clever.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about the treatments. There's going to be two-parter for this one.
It's going to be a two-parter, yeah. So you're going to have to hang out for the second part to get all the treatments and the solutions, because the first part's just going to be all about what the thyroid is, what it does, what can go wrong.
Yeah. And a lot can go wrong.
A lot.
And it affects lots of the body too.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so the thyroid, we'll just get it's situated in your neck.
Yep.
It's a nice butterfly shape, as you put there in the notes. I love that.
Yes, butterfly shape.
Yeah, it does look funny like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sits in the front of your neck there.
Okay, so it secretes thyroid hormones, T3 and T4. T3 is the active one, and it's stimulated by a hormone called thyroid stimulating hormone. Wow. Who names these things?
Right, I know. A lot of thought went into that.
I mean, they probably discover it and they go, what's this thing do? Oh, it stimulates the thyroid. What do we call it? Thyroid stimulating hormone. Good one for an exam, isn't it? When you're doing your anatomy.
Easy. Yeah.
So very interesting. Now this thyroid, as you say, it's responsible for metabolism. But what other organs does it affect before we dive right into it? What does it affect?
Well, cardiovascular system,
your
heart. Yeah, so heart rate, cardiac output, stroke volume, resting heart rate. So really important for cardiovascular health.
I know, it's incredible. I've got a paper on the facts of what it does in the heart, and it absolutely goes on forever.
Yeah.
But high heart rate, blood pressure, it controls everything. So there's a beautiful paper here that is titled, you're going to love this one, it's just simply called Hypothyroidism, the paper.
Easy.
Nature Reviews, 2022, if you want to read. And it goes through all the areas. So if you've got low thyroid, and this is what we're mainly talking about today, hypothyroid. Yeah,
it's the most common. We will talk a little bit about hyper, but and also autoimmune thyroid conditions, but hypo is probably the most common.
If you get hyperthyroidism, it can be quite grave, can't it?
Steve's all about the jokes today.
Matt, did you get the joke?
No. Graves' disease is from, yes.
That's hyperthyroidism. There you go. Do you like that?
It was great.
And I have to show you the symptoms. I'll look into the camera. That's how they look. Their eyes are bulge eyes.
Yeah.
And it's like they're mad at you.
Yes.
And they're looking at you like this. Going,
yeah, so if you can see all the one of the sort of not diagnostic tools I guess diagnostic tools is if you can see all the whites of the eyes, so that when your eyes are sort of popped out a little bit. Not everyone, but anyway, we digress.
Yeah, that's hyperthyroid. But we're mainly talking about hypo.
Yeah.
Now, hypothyroid, you mentioned the heart. It can cause bradycardia, which is a low heart rate.
Yeah.
So, that can cause all sorts of problems in the body.
Yep.
Bradycardia can be, you can get dizzy when you stand up, like orthostatic hypotension, just lack of sufficiency of your heart pumping because it's too slow.
Yeah.
Can screw with your kidneys then.
Yes.
Because your heart pumps blood around your body, but also pumps it through your liver and kidneys.
Yeah.
And so if it's not pumping hard enough, you literally, your kidneys, starve.
Yeah, we talk about that. Very common to see, but one way you can pick it up on bloods is to look at your kidney function. So kidney function almost go down.
And also it can cause high blood pressure.
Yes.
Diastolic hypertension.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. So a lot of people, have got high blood pressure. They call it a silent killer. It affects 25 to 30% of the adult population in Australia. So a lot of us are. And the weird thing is the treatment for that, and even we as naturopaths might be guilty of that too. Got high blood pressure? Oh, well, we'll give you magnesium because that reduces blood pressure. And that's not a bad treatment.
No.
But you go to a doctor and you go on propranolol and you go on the beta blockers or calcium channel blockers or ACE inhibitors and all this without the thyroid being checked.
Yes.
And if you've got low thyroid, you could have high blood pressure cause of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing, isn't it?
It's really funny. We can talk a bit more about that, but how it's missed, really commonly missed. And because there are so many symptoms that people don't necessarily associate with thyroid dysfunction, that they do miss it a lot.
Incredible.
So, yeah.
Now we mentioned basal metabolic rate before, so that's how much energy you use at rest.
Yeah.
So I mean that's really important. Because if you're low thyroid, then you're going to really struggle with weight, aren't you?
Yeah, you're going to struggle with weight. That being cold, so that comes into play with circulation, cardiovascular, but also your metabolic rate. So if that's dropping down, obviously we have a good metabolic rate. That's what keeps us warm, thermogenesis. So that's dropped down, so we can be quite cold as well. Yep. So that's a really common, obviously a lot of people are familiar with being cold with low thyroid function.
Yeah, they're sensitive to the cold.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit sensitive. It's not my thyroid, but I don't like the cold. But there's a difference where people are very sensitive and you get Raynaud's and all sorts of peripheral cold things. In this paper that we've got, the hyperthyroidism paper, it's got a picture, and just as I'm looking at it here, a picture of the human body. It's got the areas that are affected. Yes. It's the whole body.
Yeah.
So you mentioned weight gain. Also, we move down to the GI tract, and you get bloody constipation.
Yeah, significant. You can get significant gut disorders with low thyroid function, and that's another one where we look at, well, people treat the gut, but are they looking at the thyroid as part of maybe the driver of the gut condition?
Yeah. I mean, it could be that. And another thing, as an ex-muso, I'm still a muso, reduced hearing.
Yes. Yeah. Look, I didn't actually know this one. I didn't know that the hearing, you could be affected by thyroid, so there you go.
So you get people and they're getting a bit deaf as they get older. And for me, yes, for years I played in a band, 4 nights a week, loud. And my amp only went up to 10 now. It didn't go up to 11.
No, that's an inside joke, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, it's very inside. But it only went up to, but we were very loud.
Yeah.
I used to stand right near the drummer.
Yeah.
And the drummers are loud as, they're just loud people. They're just...
I was a drummer once, yeah.
Were you?
Yep. I was.
I can tell
a good drummer.
I'm going to tell you.
I played in a gig and everything.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did because I wanted to get out of maths at school, so I did drums. I learnt the drums and I could get out of maths.
Oh right, okay.
And then I ended up I did a gig, one gig in a band because they pulled out, so they asked me if I'd do it. I can't say I was great, but I know I can play them.
I'm not great at music. I did it professionally. But I've got to tell you all the drummer jokes later when we're off air.
You'll have to.
I can't think of any clean ones off the top of my head.
Yeah.
The only
Piano,
one is...
French horn, tenor recorder.
Wow.
Played them all.
Recorder?
Yep, tenor recorder, Steve. Tenor
so that's the upper range?
That's the big one. The big one, the big long one.
The tenor recorder.
It's like this long. It's about
really?
3 times the size of a normal recorder. Do you not know, Steve?
I don't talk about the size of anyone's flutes and things like that. The size doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned.
Right. No.
But I didn't know that.
Yeah, French horn. Sorry, people. We digress.
The French horn's cool.
Yeah, that was another one to get out of science, I think, or something. I don't know.
That's how I did diving. I got out of school.
But we just talk amongst ourselves.
It's funny. I played bass and then I learned guitar. So sort of, I did a bit reverse. And bass and guitar, same thing. Strings 4 or 6. All right. So other things with that.
So anyway, let's go back to the podcast.
Let's go back to the podcast. Another one, and we'll get to the big one, the neurological stuff. But appearance, you can have a puffy face.
Yes. Yep.
So fat really cheeks is associated with low thyroid.
Yeah, so quite puffy fluid retention is very common.
Yeah. So people look at that and they go, oh, you got, Cushing's disease or something. Yeah. It could just be that. Like poor old Newton. Remember Newton? He had the big moon face. Yeah.
That's what he called himself, people. That was not me being derogatory at all.
Wasn't me being derogatory.
No.
But no, he was a great guy, Bert Newton. But also things like muscle cramps.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like, and fatigues and muscles in the legs. I mean, muscle cramps, everyone thinks minerals, magnesium, calcium and that, but low thyroid.
Yep.
So crazy.
Yeah.
Brittle nails, that people think, your collagen, nutrients, you could have just low thyroid.
Yeah, brittle nails, hair snapping off, things like that. Obviously hair loss, which we most people know. Losing the outer third of your eyelid.
Yeah, that's another one.
Brow.
Yeah. Goes on forever, this thing.
Yeah.
Heavy and irregular periods.
Yep.
So everyone thinks that's hormones.
Yeah.
You know, it's your progesterone, estrogen. No, it could be your thyroid.
Yeah.
Could be.
Could be.
Loss of libido.
Yep.
Everyone thinks that's old or aging or something.
Mm-hmm.
Low fertility too, so that's incredible too. And the big one for me that I'm really interested in is the neurological effects. So cognitive dysfunction, slow speech, but also depression.
Really common mood disorders, mental health issues with thyroid dysfunction. Really common.
Really common.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting stuff. So if someone's depressed for a reason that's not like, you know, you can be depressed because you've
for no known reason.
Yeah. And you're just low, depressed, sluggish, cold, constipated. Yeah, this is the thyroid picture. Putting on weight easy, just not happy with life. Absolutely incredible. And depression is huge. They first discovered depression, you know, this in 1825, the link between thyroid and depression.
Wow, that long ago, hey?
1825.
Wow. Amazing.
And there was a great scientist called Seagull.
Seagull?
Yeah, that was his name. And he termed the thyroid and mental health depression. I think that was 1888, Seagull.
There you go.
Yeah, Dr. Seagull. Doesn't sound like a...
I don't know if anyone gets here someone called Dr. Seagull. But you never know. He was probably
you probably
a great
don't. Oh, there's a great series on TV that we watch called Dr. Death, my wife and I.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, so
great.
That's about a dodgy doctor. But isn't that interesting that all these things could be low thyroid? So if you know anyone who's got some, all, or if it sounds like you, get this stuff checked. Also... some of your notes here, resting respiratory rate can be kind of slow too. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So people who have trouble getting a breath, some people say, I just can't get a breath in. So that can be thyroid as well. If you just, feel like you can't take a full breath or you get breathless quite easily, that definitely can be a sign of thyroid issues.
Amazing.
Because it helps with oxygen delivery and things like that as well. So, bone health as well.
Bone health is incredibly important.
T3 stimulates bone remodeling.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you just could be low in all this sort of stuff and you don't know. And I mean, low thyroid, there's many, many causes. There's even genetic causes. So you could just have low thyroid as being born with that.
Yeah.
And there's many medications, we'll get onto those later. But it's incredible this can be so low. And another one you mentioned here is just that... basically T3, which is the active thyroid, stimulates increased full wakefulness. So if you just had a lot of sleep and you're just tired all the time, and people complain about that in the office, someone's always tired here.
Always.
And there's like, oh, I'm tired. Why? Oh, I didn't sleep or whatever. But the worrying thing is someone says, oh, you're tired. Why are you tired? And they go, I don't know. I'm just tired.
Yeah. Or I sleep 8 to 10 hours a night or more and I'm still tired. Just can't get that sort of energy going. So, thyroid can impact mitochondrial function as well. We all know mitochondrial function is responsible for energy production.
Yep.
So, and as you said, reproductive health, really important in reproductive health.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, fertility. So a lot of miscarriages and things can be from thyroid issues. So low T3, autoimmune thyroid conditions can be a factor when women are struggling to fall pregnant or even maintain a pregnancy as well. So that can be something. So I don't treat fertility, but that's something that when I used to do a little bit of it, is always just recommend getting thyroid function tested if you are struggling with your fertility, because that's really common.
You mentioned your practice. I mean, Nicole Brown, naturopathy, you're in practice right now, and I'm asking you this without you thinking about it, because I forgot to ask you before the podcast, but how many people would you suspect have, I'm not just going to say low thyroid, but subclinical hypothyroidism, which is low thyroid, but you're still within the normal range?
I would say 70% of the clients I see, probably.
In the population, it's about 40.
Well, there you go.
And that's like...
That's in the general population.
Yeah, it's like getting a D for your exam in maths, because you love maths.
I love maths.
You're sort of like, yes, I passed, and it's like, but I'm pretty crap at maths, that sort of thing. And that's what subclinical hypothyroidism. Yeah. And they measure a chemical. The most common test is the TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone test. Yep. And it should be 0.5 to about 4. And the higher TSH is, this is the weird thing for people to understand, the higher the TSH, the lower your thyroid.
Yeah, so the higher, that means the slower it is.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, 0.5 to 4 is the general lab ranges, but when we're looking naturopathically, we're looking at much narrower ranges.
Yep.
It's more like sort of, 0.5 to 1.5, maybe 2. But, I mean, and there is no magic number. Everyone is going to set a little bit differently. And, look, the TSH will go up and down because, as we will talk about, the thyroid is just sort of your regulator. So it's going to have times where it's up and down. But, yeah, generally sort of 0.5 to 1.5, 2. Anything over 2, you're starting to think possibly subclinical hyperthyroidism, which is exactly what you say. It's not diagnosable, but there is definitely some dysfunction.
And, we talk about that. And so you might go to the doctor and the doctor will just look at you and you get a thyroid test. No, your thyroid's fine. It's within the healthy range.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
But you could be 3.9.
Yeah.
And that's just in range. It's like getting a D- for your maths. You're not good at maths.
Yeah,
it needs attention.
Exactly, yeah. And the other thing is generally they only measure your TSH.
Yes.
And so that's pretty much all. And that's not actually a thyroid hormone. That's basically from the pituitary telling your thyroid to produce these hormones.
Yeah.
So you want to also look at T4, free T3, ideally reverse T3, and then thyroid antibodies. Super
What's this
important.
reverse T3 business?
So reverse T3. So as we talk about when we talk about stress. So as you said, T4. So most of the thyroid hormone that is produced is T4.
90%,
yeah. And that's pretty much primarily inactive. So we need T4 to then convert to the active form of thyroid hormone, which is T3, which is what we want. So we want to have good amounts of T4 so it can convert. We want it to convert, and we can talk about reasons why it may not be converting to T3. And then it can also bypass T3 and convert to reverse T3, which again is very inactive. Very inactive. So you're still going to have symptoms of low thyroid. So you could have normal TSH. You could have good levels of T4. And so that's a lot of times all the doctors will look at and they go, well, you're fine. Your T4's fine. Your TSH is both in range, no problem. But if they're not looking at your T3, which could be super low, or your reverse T3, which could be quite high, there's a lot of problems there, but that's missed very commonly.
It's amazing. I mean, reverse T3 fits into the T3 receptors and blocks them, so your active T3 can't activate it. Yeah. And reverse T3 is increased with a condition that 99.99% of us have, which is stress.
Yeah.
And stress can come and go, of course. But if you are stressed, and I've got a great study here on stress, and the way that we medically assess stress, I mean, you can ask if they're stressed, and people subjectively feel that. But a hormone released when you're stressed is cortisol. We've talked a lot about cortisol. And there's a paper here, it's a beautiful title. It says Assessment of Serum Cortisol Levels in Hypothyroid Patients. And this is published in 2023. And it's got graphs in it. And I know you love graphs, and I love thyroid. But the graphs are so remarkable. I'll point it to the camera, but if you look at that, it's a direct linear. The more, the top one there, the more cortisol you've got, the more TSH you've got. And everyone goes, oh, so your thyroid goes up with it. No. TSH, the higher it is, the lower your thyroid. And if you look at the bottom graph there where my fat fingers are covering, the more cortisol goes up, the less T4 you've got. And if we flick the page of this particular study, the cortisol goes down with the active T3. So high cortisol, low T3.
Every time.
High stress, low T3.
Stress.
High stress, low thyroid.
Exactly.
Now this makes sense to me, because if you're stressed in the hunting and gathering, like you were about 1 million years ago, you're out in the bush, and something stressful came along, getting chased by an animal or something like that, then you don't give a stuff about your thyroid for 10 minutes, 15 minutes while you're getting away from the bloody thing.
That's it. Exactly.
You're fighting or flighting. And so you don't need your stupid thyroid going on there. But eventually, when your cortisol, you're back to your cave and you're settling down, your thyroid level kicks in again. But stress these days is chronic. Yeah. And all these things are, and that's a perfect example. And we'll also talk about under eating and things like that, other reasons that can cause thyroid issues. But your body it's not dysfunctional. It's doing something in response to the environment. So it's actually working well. Yes. But, because we live in a world where everything is chronic stress, all the things that we have, the thyroid really just can't regulate properly. So you can be, always out of whack in a lot of people, and because of the lives they're living and the things they're doing lifestyle-wise that we're talking about in the modern world. So anything can stress you out, even if you may live with a vicious German shepherd that keeps attacking you. Might.
My German Shepherd is not vicious and doesn't attack me.
Okay, so let's have a look at your forearms.
So, no, they're much better.
They're better?
They are a little bit better, yeah. So he's 3 months old now.
You never say you don't want to show the camera your forearms.
No, I know. No, he's just got, anyone that has a German Shepherd will know they're called land sharks. Land sharks or Tyrannosaurus rexes.
Oh, that doesn't sound stressful at all.
Because they got really sharp teeth.
Great.
But yes, any sort of stress. Chronic, we're talking. Acute stress, what we've talked about plenty of times in the past, can be quite beneficial for the body.
Yeah.
Doesn't cause too much dysfunction, but chronic stress is where you have a lot of imbalances, and it really does impact the thyroid significantly.
It does. So that's incredible. And, I mean, because everyone is exposed to some sort of stress in their life, it's absolutely remarkable, the correl. Now, for the nerds out there, and this is for the 0.1% of people, the correlations for this are like 0.9 for all of them. So they're very strong correlations.
Yeah.
You know, as cortisol goes up, your thyroid goes down. Yeah. So any sort of stress, and stress is different to people. You know, we talk about, what might stress me out won't stress you out, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so there's no such thing as stress, because some people like doing things that everyone else hates doing.
Yeah. You
know, they just have different tastes or different things that stress them out.
Yeah, people have different resiliences to stress as well. But I think what we have to say, and what we're going to talk about now, is some of the factors that can impact our thyroid function.
Yeah, let's do that.
So
hit me with one.
What we have to say, what I'd like to say first is it's never the thyroid, unless there's a few exceptions, thyroid cancer, things like that, hot nodules, that can be a factor. That can be the thyroid itself that's causing a problem. But generally, it's not the thyroid that is the problem. It's something that's triggering the thyroid's reaction. So, when somebody says, well, I'll just give you the nutrients for the thyroid and that'll fix it. No. Or someone comes to say, for instance, someone comes to me and said, well, I have a thyroid issue. I'm like, well, do you have a thyroid issue? Yes, you have a thyroid issue, but why? Because what's driving it? Yeah. So it's never just the thyroid deciding, you know what, I think I'm just going to decide to not do anything for a while. There's always something that's triggering it. So it's like the canary in the coal mine for people who are old enough to understand that analogy.
I'm old enough, obviously.
Yeah. So but they used to send a canary, sorry for all the animal lovers, they used to send a canary down the coal mines because if there was too much gas, the canary would die and the people would know not to go down there. It's pretty bad.
I think it's quite clever. What do you mean? It's like, you can eat the bird afterwards.
Anyway, moving on. But the thyroid's the same sort of thing. So the thyroid is going to react to the environment. So, whether it be stress, infections, or the things that we're going to talk about, it's just reacting, and it's very, very sensitive. So, that's what we have to remember when looking at thyroid health. It's never just the thyroid that's the problem. It's reacting. So we don't just treat the thyroid, we treat the driver.
The cause.
Yeah.
Which varies a bit from medicine.
Yes.
And it's not pick on medicine day. There's certainly roles for this. But you got to remember, when you go to your doctor and you're diagnosed with low thyroid, the classic prescription for that is thyroxine, which is Oroxin is the brand, which is synthetic T4 that you orally take to boost your thyroid. And it works well. But why is your thyroid low?
Exactly.
And that's what needs to be investigated. Now, there's a few things that the regulators say, what about viruses? Which viruses affect the thyroid adversely?
There's quite a lot of viruses that affect the thyroid, and there's some that affect it quite significantly.
Yep.
So Epstein-Barr virus it's a really common virus that a lot of people have. I think up to 80% of people. I don't know the exact stats on that. They used to call it the kissing disease because, it's transmitted by kissing, and most teenagers get it. So because that's like kissing boys and girls. I think I got Epstein-Barr when I was about 18
Passing
or 19.
some guy, I guess.
Maybe, I don't know. Can't remember back that far. But yeah, I got it. I was quite sick with it actually for a while.
My sister was sick with it too.
Oh, there you go.
I've had it. I've had anybody test to it, but I don't remember having a virus that knocked me out. But yeah, it's pretty bad. It's
pretty bad, and it's very common to see people that have a lot of thyroid issues do have Epstein-Barr or have had Epstein-Barr virus. Some still have it. It's an envelope virus, so it can be very difficult to get rid of.
Yeah. It's also called infectious mononucleosis. That's the other name for it.
Yes, that's right.
Well, what other viruses? There's some nasty ones.
Yeah, herpes simplex virus, another really common virus, because a lot of people never have any symptoms of herpes, so that's why it's very easily transmitted.
Yep.
Because people don't know they've got it.
Another one you can get from kissing?
Again. No. Well, yes, kissing. That's right. From kissing.
Jeez, you don't want to kiss these girls. Yeah, the girl germs. Or
well, maybe
in my
it's
case,
boy germs.
But probably both germs.
Yeah. Hepatitis C.
Yep.
Human parvovirus.
Parvovirus has come from where?
dogs?
Yes, vicious dogs.
I should know
again,
that because I
killer
have to get
dogs.
those vaccinated.
Now, there's one
dogs.
other virus, and we've got to be careful how you say this one, or you get censored.
Also, Coxsackie virus, Steve-O.
Okay.
That's another one.
Yep.
And there is another virus that is significantly impacts the thyroid, a more recent virus.
Oh, that
may have
one.
been around during the pandemic.
What pandemic? We're not talking about the pandemic.
We're not allowed to actually say the name of the virus
No,
for sensitive
that's all right.
purposes, but people know what that is. And there's a lot coming out now. I'm seeing a lot of people that are having huge impacts from that virus. It can reactivate autoimmune conditions that maybe were in remission.
Yeah.
It has significant impact on the thyroid. It affected my thyroid when I had the virus. Yeah. So a lot of people will go, it's called viral thyrotoxiditis.
Yep.
And so people will go into like a hyperthyroid state, which is very fast.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, people get the, and this is true for a lot of viruses too, that it's the actual thyroid. So it's causing the weight loss. You get hot and you get fevers and you get weight loss and you get the runs and all that sort of thing. The same sort of symptoms you get when you get fast thyroid.
Wow.
So that hyperthyroid state is when you first get that virus, and then it can then drop into a hypothyroid state, so it can go very fast and it can drop down and go very slow, and then it is supposed to regulate it, usually within particularly with the most recent virus, within 3 months, it's supposed to re-regulate again, but a lot of people it's not. So that's has a really significant impact on the thyroid. So if you have had that virus, even people who have had, I don't think I'm allowed to say the needles as well. We can't say anything. But yes, anything to do with that pandemic can really significantly impact the thyroid. So if you are having troubles post that virus, even chronic fatigue or those types of things, thyroid could be a significant factor that you should look into.
Yeah, and check this out. These are blood tests you can get checked and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the specific testing because it's a bit weird, your testing before. Yeah. Now, we've mentioned stress. Now, are you telling me that also sleep can impact my thyroid?
Yes.
It's like sleep.
Definitely.
Okay, so everyone has problems sleeping from time to time.
Yeah. Well, I can give you a personal, I'll share. I can give you a personal example. So my thyroid, my TSH went quite out. So it's gone to 3.7, which is quite high, subclinical hyperthyroidism, because I've had lack of sleep for the last couple of months, months specifically, but before that as well. So it's really impacted my thyroid, not getting enough sleep. So because it activates the stress response as well, and that activates inflammation, so sleep significantly can impact the thyroid. Just sleep alone. So if you're really struggling with sleep, not getting enough sleep, thyroid can be affected significantly.
The sleep's important. We've done podcasts on sleep before, how important it is. Yeah. And the fact that the thyroid comes up is no real surprise to me, because it's but it's very interesting because the cortisol levels, because cortisol is increased when you sleep, screws with the appetite. It's very important, sleep. It's
super important. And honestly, when you don't get it, and I shouldn't say that. I have an appreciation for women with children. I don't have children, but I have a puppy, and I would never, ever compare children to a puppy.
No, what's the difference?
But the sleep deprivation is real, people. So it definitely. So and that's interesting when we can talk more about mothers, but postpartum thyroiditis as well, and thyroid conditions with new mothers because of the lack of sleep and the stress and all the other things that go along with having a new baby. It really impacts thyroid function, and you see it a lot.
Oh, and the stress.
Yeah, the stress.
And also new mums typically don't boost their thyroid by exercising. They're busy with bubs, so
they don't have enough
it's
time,
really it's a tricky situation. It really is tricky.
Yeah.
Now we have to talk about the elephant in the room, no pun intended, but we have to talk about obesity and thyroid because people relate those sorts of things. Now you want to explain the relationship between them and if there is one, and what causes what. And
yeah, it's really funny because everyone thinks, well, thyroid function that makes you put on weight, which it can do, definitely. But a lot of it is that the weight creates the thyroid problem.
Yes.
Not the other way around.
I know.
Yeah.
I got a paper on that just to support your argument.
Yes.
But I'll look for it and then you can tell me.
I'm talking, yes. So, and a lot of it, I think a lot of it was that, people would put on weight, or they'd feel not well and they'd start to put on weight, or other factors would be going on. And then they'd go and get blood tests down the track and they'd go, oh, well, your thyroid's out of whack.
Yeah.
So it must be the thyroid that's created And, you know, when I was younger, it used to be I actually knew someone who was quite overweight, had a weight problem, and they said, I just have a thyroid issue. It's a thyroid issue. So if that was primarily what happened, then everybody who had a thyroid issue would be overweight. And so the obesity can create the issue. So they say that obesity, and we will talk about goitrogens, so fat is a goitrogen, which basically means it impacts thyroid function.
And it does via leptin, and there's paper here and I'm not making this up, it's called Obesity Facts, the paper, and it's talking about the role between decreased leptin or leptin alterations with thyroid stimulating hormone. And they tested this, and they found that leptin has an adverse effect. Now, leptin is a hormone that's released from fat cells. So the more fat cells you got, the more leptin. Yeah. Leptin's a hormone that's supposed to go to your brain and tell you to stop eating.
Yeah.
But people get leptin resistance, so leptin doesn't tell them to stop eating, and they're morbidly obese and continue to stay overweight.
Yeah.
So leptin does dramatically affect the thyroid.
Yeah.
So that's a nice paper on that one. I'll put down there because I've talked about that.
And obesity creates low-grade inflammation as well.
Yes.
And inflammation will impact thyroid function.
Yep, and I've got another paper supporting you again here on metabolic, the role of thyroid hormone in metabolism in metabolic syndrome. And that was another paper here, that's the title of the paper. And it shows you that they are intimately related.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've treated a lot of women with thyroid function who have been normal weight or underweight, or healthy weight or underweight. When my thyroid went out when I was competing, after I competed, my thyroid function went right down, and we can talk about the reasons why and some of the other factors.
Oh, yeah.
But I was very underweight with the underactive thyroid. So it's not always the case that you will put on weight with thyroid. So,
well, you know, in your case, you were literally starving yourself, weren't you?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about undereating and how that impacts it. So obesity is a very common cause of underactive thyroid issues.
Another one that we talk about almost every podcast is poor gut health. How does that affect the thyroid?
So it goes both ways. So the gut can affect the thyroid, and then if the thyroid goes out, then that can worsen the gut as well. So again, same type of thing. So if we've got any dysbiosis in the gut, that can create inflammation. We have gut hyperpermeability, so then we have perhaps those lipopolysaccharides, which we've talked about in the past, cross that barrier and then go into systemic circulation. That activates all your inflammatory markers, which then impacts the thyroid. So there's that. There's also, if you have gut issues, you can have malabsorption. So you're not absorbing those nutrients, so you can have nutrient deficiencies. And
we're going to go into the nutrients probably in part 2 of this podcast. So, but you need, they come through the gut.
Yeah.
So if your gut's screwed,
so zincs, things like that, iron we will talk about, but that can definitely create a thyroid issue. And then when the thyroid isn't functioning properly, then that also slows down gut function, motility, reduces bile flow, because you need that T3 to actually it helps to squeeze out the bile from the gallbladder. So if you don't get that, then you have poor bile flow. So bile is antimicrobial. So then if you don't have that, then that can impact your gut. Also, bile is needed to absorb fat-soluble vitamins, cholesterol. So we see cholesterol go up when there's thyroid issues as well.
Of course.
So that can be part of that with that bile insufficiency.
So you know, you're going to your doctor for your blood test. Very common test is cholesterol. And, you know, every year I get that checked, you know, just the lipids and that. And, you know, and if it's high, the treatment is a statin medication, which is the most commonly prescribed drug in Australia. But it could be the thyroid.
It could definitely be the thyroid. And I see it all the time. So I see it all the time when thyroid function goes down, cholesterol goes up.
That's
so
amazing.
Lipid markers go up. So really common, and a lot of that can be just from poor bile flow because you're not, emulsifying your fats, but not pulling it out of your system. So that's really common.
And if your poo's too, sorry to get graphic, if your poo's too tanned, like not dark enough, the colour of bile
light.
If it's too light, be careful of that.
You can go clay colour. You can have skin issues. A lot of, people who take fish oils and they burp. That can be a bile issue as well because the fats, they can't take the fats, diarrhea, that sort of thing. We've talked about that in the past. And that can lead on to SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which we've talked about in the past. And then that will then impact the thyroid further. So it becomes like a vicious cycle.
It's a terrible situation to be in. Now, I'm going to... what about environmental toxins? They must do the thyroid wonders.
Yeah, they're great for the thyroid. As we said, the thyroid is very sensitive, and it's very sensitive to any sort of toxic exposure. And so environmental toxins, and we're all exposed to them on different levels. So, and that's what we've talked about in the past, trying to make sure environment is as clean as possible, avoiding a lot of as many toxins as you can, household cleaners and even beauty products and things like that. But yes, heavy metals really significant.
The 4 heavy metals that are really bad are aluminium, cadmium, lead, and mercury.
Yeah.
Now, okay, let's just start off with aluminium. I mean, let's say you get up in the morning, have a shower, and you get your spray can of aluminium chlorohydrate.
Yeah.
That's what's in it. 10% usually. That's what used to make it. And you just go spray, 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 breathe, 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 spray, spray, breathe, breathe. It's going to get into your body.
Yeah, even if you use a roll-on, it's still absorbing through your skin.
Especially if you shave.
Yep.
And I don't, but you do, probably. Don't know.
You're not my face, no.
No, but your underarms.
Yeah, I do.
Breaks down the dermis and see, that's scary,
and
isn't it?
Even elemental and aluminium. Aluminium cooking things like pots and pans. A lot of people have used aluminium. That can be another way you can get it as well.
See, that's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Now also cadmium.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that people say, well, I don't have any exposure to any of these heavy metals. Well, a lot of these things are thrown into the ground, aren't they? The old mobile phones had cadmium batteries.
Well, NiCads are still commonly used in AA batteries.
There you go. So a lot of it used to get thrown into landfill, which leaches into our soils, which then leaches into the crops that we eat. So a lot of people are getting exposure to heavy metals that may not have any idea that they're getting exposed to.
And smokers. I mean, there's still some of them out there.
Yeah.
10% of the population smoke or something. I don't know. Why would you do that? But yeah, we don't do podcasts now because the English know it's terrible stuff. And people who smoke know it's bad. So, but one of the reasons it's bad is because of cadmium.
Yeah.
And lead. I mean, that's everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah. So, old paint, but I don't think they have as much lead paint as they used to have. But in older houses, there'd still be lead paint. Jewelry, children's toys, mining industry, that sort of thing. And then here's another one, mercury, Steve.
Mercury.
Now, this one is a much easier one to be exposed to if you love seafood.
Yeah, seafood. It's in seafood too.
It's in a lot of seafood. So you want to be really careful about the seafood that you're having. So particularly long-lived fish, there's like the top 7 of the big fish. So the more longer living the fish, obviously the more mercury it's going to absorb. So you want to eat more seasonal fish. The salmon is seasonal. But things like tuna and shark, orange roughy,
swordfish and billfish are the big ones. Now that's really bad because it binds up with the iodine and takes the iodine out of your body, and that destroys it too. Another thing that displaces iodine, if you think of a periodic table, which I don't know if it's on camera, but think of a rectangle like that green thing behind us here. Now they're grouped. There's 8 groups up there, and then you got this middle bit, which is the transition metals. Group 7 is where iodine is. So anything that's in group 7 of the periodic table does displace iodine because they're the same charge, 1 negative. So things like chlorine,
which is what, Steve? Drinking water.
Yeah.
So a lot of us are drinking chlorine every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, sodium chloride's right because it's a chloride ion, and it's well, but also in there is bromide.
Yes.
So bromide is found in things like spas and that sort of thing. I can screw with the thyroid if you've got one. Fluoride.
Fluoridated water.
Yep.
So, people might be thinking, well, I don't, but we are exposed to a lot of these things every day. So
we are exposed. I mean, absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And then you're looking at household toxins as well.
Oh, what's some of them?
Oh, so we've got flame retardants. I'm reading this here. So furniture. So this is not just cleaning chemicals. This is things that are in your home. So furniture, carpet, clothing, the screens of electronic devices. And some of these have some of these. They're called PDEs.
Well, that's polybrominated diphenyl ethers.
Yeah.
And what they do is they stop flames from burning. You know the old videos of kids with their pajamas on going near the fire and they'd burst into flames?
Yes.
They don't anymore because of this stuff.
Flame retardant. Yeah, so a lot of children's clothes, they have these flame retardants in them. So it's really...
Because it is bad for the thyroid, but it's bad to burst into flames as well.
Burst into flames as well. I know. Matt's loving that.
Oh, it's funny.
Yeah. So
those videos were terrible.
So a lot of these, they bind to T4. As well, so it stops the T4 being transported through the and disturbs estrogen function and all that sort of thing as well. And then we all know the BPAs phenyl A and phthalates.
Phenyl A,
Yep. So water bottles, plastic containers, that type of thing.
That doesn't have it in there.
No, that doesn't have it in it. Children toys. Again, children's things really bad.
On them. And you got to remember, in kids, this is worse because, if a kid's born iodine deficient, they get a terrible illness called cretinism, which is a severe retardation of the child.
Yeah.
And it's very, very dangerous. So if you're born in low iodine soils and low thyroid, you really, if you're pregnant, you have to be very careful about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this goes doubly if you're wanting to have kids.
Yeah. So we talk always about, don't cook in plastic containers, don't heat up plastic containers, don't drink out of plastic water bottles. And this is why, because a lot of these inhibit T3 from binding to its receptor sites. So that's really going to impact thyroid function. So you really want to be careful. And then industrial chemicals and things like that as well, obviously. So they can be really, really detrimental as well. So, all these industrial sort of toxins and things really bad for our thyroid health.
Look, it really is. And, we haven't even started on some of the things that most people are thinking. But you talk about PCBs and all these sort of toxins are really bad.
Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. So that's why a lot of times, we do say eat organic where you can, and people roll their eyes and they say, well, and this is true. They say there's no difference between organic and conventional. Nutritionally wise, maybe not.
No, it's
but
still got
toxin wise, massive difference.
Massive difference.
And somebody that may be dealing with an autoimmune condition, a autoimmune thyroid condition, for instance. Going organic is really important because you want to limit the exposure to any type of environmental toxin or chemical that is going to impact your thyroid further.
Absolutely. I mean, they're bad for many things.
Yeah.
But they're bad for your thyroid as well, which is really important. You've seen what the thyroid affects pretty much every body tissue. You've got thyroid receptors throughout the entire body.
Yeah, that's right. That's what people don't realise. It's throughout the entire body, which is why it impacts so many different systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing.
Yeah.
Now we did touch on before about poor blood sugar control, but let's say you're a bad eater and you're snacking on sugary treats. What does that do?
So any sort of a blood sugar dysregulation, so whether some people that may have high blood sugar, some people may have low blood sugar, either way it's still going to cause an impact on your thyroid. So one, it activates the stress response,
cortisol,
causes inflammation, that type of thing. So that can be something that can definitely impact thyroid function, aside from someone that eats maybe high refined carbohydrates and sugars and things that in itself is going to cause issues. But, somebody that maybe undereats, perhaps, or they might fast for a long time, and this is where women, particularly, because we didn't say, but a lot more women have thyroid conditions than men.
More,
and there are reasons for that. But if you have a thyroid condition, fasting may not be the best thing for you. So
exactly.
It activates that stress response.
Under eating, I mean, the average, we'll say woman in this case, but let's say they're slightly overweight. The first thing they do is cut calories.
Yeah. Yep. First thing they do, and the most common thing I see, well, maybe not so much, but then the population that I used to see a lot of was athletes and things like that. Yeah. People who were very much into training and fitness. I would see 9 times out of 10 underactive thyroid or subclinical hyperthyroidism, and they would come to me for that. They say, well, I've had my blood test done. They're not putting on weight, but they say, I can't put on muscle, or I'm losing my muscle, I'm tired, and my hair's falling out, and all these things are happening. And we look at their thyroid function, and they're underactive, and they say, well, it's my thyroid. Well, I've just got to fix my thyroid. Give me the supplements, give me the herbs that are fixing my thyroid. I'm like, you're under-eating. It's the under-eating that's causing that. So what your body would do, and this comes back to what we talked about at the beginning, when you get chased by a tiger or when you're getting your berries and your...
That didn't happen when I was younger. I got chased by tigers. Right. I'm pretty old.
That's right. But it's a survival mechanism. So if you're not eating enough, your body's going to slow down your metabolic function to maintain as much body fat as possible, because it doesn't know that you're not in a famine. It just knows there's no food coming in, so we have to slow things down. Otherwise, we're going to burn through our reserves of body fat, and that'll be it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It makes perfect sense too. Yeah. And it's a survival thing. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
No.
So it's not a dysfunction.
No, it's not.
It's an absolute function. So under-eating.
Really common, and women undereat a lot of times when they're trying to lose weight, and then of course thyroid function goes out, which then will impact their metabolic function even more, and so then they won't lose weight, or they may start to put on a bit of weight. So Under-eating is really, really common and can be really detrimental to thyroid function.
And women are prone to that because they have, men don't care about how they look, really, generally speaking.
No,
We're pretty
they
shit
don't.
at
And,
that.
they do lose weight easier. Not all men. I will say that some women have some issues as well. But, we have the hormones to contend with and all of that sort of thing as well. And we do carry more body fat than men. So it can be harder for women. Not saying it's not challenging for some men as well. But yeah, that's one. And then here's something that goes along. So I used to get this a lot too. So I get the women that undereat, and then on top of that overtrain or over-exercise. So I've got to eat less and exercise more.
Yeah.
That classic scenario. So we've talked about that in the past as well, how terrible that is for your overall health.
Overtraining.
Yeah.
So this doesn't apply to the person that exercises once a week. You got to remember, overtraining is you're doing a lot.
Yeah, you're doing a lot. And I have to say, even if you are your body is dysregulated, systems is dysregulated, got a lot of inflammation, a lot of stress, then you may not be able to handle as much exercise as someone else. So you may be training 4 days a week. But if you're in your body state which is inflamed, there's a lot of stress, that's too much training exercise for you. So therefore, you're overtraining. Yeah. But it could also be the women that would train. Like, for instance, I used to train 3-4 times a day. So when I was at the height of training, that's not an uncommon thing. Or women that say, I do weight training 5 days a week, but I lift super heavy, and then I'll also get my 20 to 30,000 steps a day in, which could be a couple of hours of walking.
Really?
Yeah,
20, 30,000
really
steps?
Really common. Yeah. So that in itself, even if you're not under-eating, but just that overtraining, it creates that stress response again, creates inflammation. The body says, well, this is too much. We've got to slow everything down. So they're really probably the two most common things I see is overtraining, under-eating that can cause thyroid issues.
Oh, yeah. And again, mainly women.
Mainly women. And the thing is, if you start eating more and pulling it back, thyroid function generally goes back to normal, unless you have autoimmune, which we're going to talk about. Autoimmune thyroid condition, which is different. But otherwise, the body, the thyroid is just responding to the environment, as we said at the start. So you have to change the environment that's triggering the response.
Like when we think about when I think of overtraining, I think of people like the weightlifters.
Yeah.
The Ronnie Colemans that are super big, but they would make up for it with calories. I don't know much about what women eat when they're bulking. Is it a lot of food or?
No, well, definitely not.
Not like it. Yeah, but the men they go extreme, don't they? Like. Well,
I mean, if you're a big bodybuilder, but I guess just your general, fitness model, like male fitness models, things like that. The extreme bodybuilders, but they will also be taking other things probably to enhance.
Well, Rich Piano's famous for taking steroids and would have 12 meals a day, this sort of stuff. He gives the extreme of the extreme.
Yeah.
And he was a nut job. He had an 8-hour arm workout.
It's ridiculous.
Can you believe that?
That is ridiculous.
It's like, what are you doing today? My 8-hour arm workout.
Yeah.
You've got to Google that stuff.
Yeah.
He's massive.
Yeah. So, they're also taking a lot of hormones. They're taking other things which are going to, that changes the whole physiology. So someone that is just normally training, but you don't want to be doing too much. You want to have good recovery, rest recovery, all that sort of thing. So that's really something that I see a lot of. And here's another thing that's really common, and this is where women are more prone to thyroid conditions, is sex hormones.
Oh, sex hormones.
Yeah.
Talk about estrogen.
Yeah, okay. So estrogen. High estrogen can actually stimulate thyroid growth, so the growth of the gland. So really common to see women who have estrogen dominance or high estrogen to have thyroid issues, because too much estrogen will impact thyroid function significantly, and also not enough estrogen. So we go from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
So this is pretty much impacts women right from puberty to the end of their life. So the main sort of stages of hormonal change for women. So puberty, pregnancy, perimenopause, menopause. So all of those stages will impact thyroid function, because you will either getting wild fluctuations of hormones, particularly estrogen, or you're just flatlining estrogen postmenopausally. So you will always see thyroid function drop a little bit postmenopausally, because we lose that estrogen. And even progesterone to a degree. So we lose progesterone, which we know is very calming on the nervous system. Yep. So then you have more sensitivities to that stressors. So that stress response is activated more often, which then impacts thyroid function. So that's really really common. And even testosterone. So testosterone in women which, PCOS, insulin resistance, things like that.
Yep.
You can see testosterone
Too much testosterone,
go up.
yep.
So that can impact thyroid. And then men. So men who have low testosterone, or men who are aromatizing their testosterone to estrogen, and then they have an estrogen issue, and that can impact thyroid.
So that can be typically obese men,
yeah,
because fat cells turn testosterone to estradiol.
Yeah.
Amazingly, yeah, because that really puts on men's weight. And we talked about the bodybuilders before. Some of them take Aromadex, which is a drug that slows down aromatase, and boosts testosterone in men and reduces estrogen. Yeah. So that's really so it's interesting because men who become obese become very estrogen.
Yeah, very much so.
And so if their thyroid was measured, it'd be low.
Yeah, and I see that quite often.
Yeah.
So the TSH can be quite high in men who have obesity, and even not significant obesity, so sort of just that central adiposity, that can definitely impact thyroid function.
And again, they go to the doctor. The doctor says, "Oh, you got low thyroid. I can treat that."
Yeah.
Throw them to thyroid, but the cause.
Yeah.
It's unaddressed.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Now, also, when you think about all this in those stages you talked about, medications.
Yeah.
Like common ones. What are some of the common? Just go through one at a time, because this is really interesting.
Well, I'll talk about, because we just talked about sex hormones, so I'll talk about this most common medication there is pretty much is the contraceptive pill.
Contraceptive pill, yep.
So really, really common for women to have thyroid issues from the pill.
Wow.
So because you're getting a big flood of synthetic estrogen, which will definitely cause thyroid issues. And then along with the pill, you get a lot of those nutrient deficiencies. So zinc, magnesium, iron, B12, folate, all of those nutrients are really important for thyroid function. So the pill can really mess with your thyroid.
I was always and this is being a bit naive, but the placebo pills you take on the pill, there's 7 of them. They're full of sugar in them. Why are they sticking with those nutrients?
Oh, that's a good... Steve, my God, you could make $1 million doing that.
But, most women either take them or chuck them out.
Yeah.
Because they're sugar pills. They're placebos in a way, but they just stimulate a bleed.
Yeah, it's a chemical bleed. That's what women think through that. They say, well, I get my period. I still get my period. I'm just like, it's not a period. It's a chemical period. It's not a real period. So, if you don't take the sugar pills, you don't get a period. So it's all it is.
And that's a lot of women do that too.
Yeah, so that I thought that was really interesting because a lot of women are on that. But some of the other medications can cause thyroid issues. So glucocorticoids.
Right, so steroids?
Steroids.
So you could have asthma or something, you're on steroids. Yep. That stuffs it.
Here's a really common one, antidepressants.
Antidepressants. Now, which antidepressants?
So SSRIs.
Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So that's like the Prozacs of the world,
Yep. Antiepileptics.
Anti-epileptic medication, absolutely. Like
lithium.
Lithium, yep.
Again, so impacts.
Now, lithium is a mineral that is good for humans, but they give like 300 milligram doses. And you should only take about 1 milligram a day. Yeah. So these are pharmaceutical interventions, or you can actually take up to 900 milligrams of lithium a day. Yeah. Cool. Severe bipolar depression, if they've got that, or bipolar disorder.
Wow.
What other drugs?
So tricyclic antidepressants.
Yep, another type of antidepressant.
Metformin.
Metformin is a diabetic drug.
Yep. So these can all directly affect thyroid function.
Yep.
I skipped over. Dopamine agonists.
Ah, yes.
Somatostatin. Analogs. Retinoids. So they will all inhibit TSH secretion.
Right.
So they'll inhibit it. And then the other ones are the lithium, tricyclic antidepressants, SSRIs, anti-epileptics, things like that will affect thyroid function.
Yep. Good.
And then interferon A and antiretroviral drugs.
So
antivirals.
Yeah, antivirals. So you could be on antivirals for all sorts of things.
Yeah.
You could have a herpes type 2, or you could have AIDS.
Yeah.
Or you could have another virus that we won't mention.
Yeah.
That has drugs for it. So lots of reasons to have low thyroid.
Yeah, a lot.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is quite scary because they're very common drugs.
Really common. I mean, as I said, antidepressants, obviously OCP, those sort of things. A lot of people are on those. So, and even things like PPI, which don't directly affect thyroid function, but they will then cause nutrient deficiencies, which can then affect thyroid function as well. So
that's amazing. So anyone could have low thyroid for millions of different reasons.
Yeah.
But the $1 million question is, how do we test for it and how do we treat it? We're going to talk about that
next week. Oh, sorry, people. We have to tune in next week for that one.
All right.
Yeah.
So next week we're going to talk about the treatments. So if this sounds like you got to listen next week.
Definitely.
All right. We'll see you then.
See you guys.